took a lot of the sound bites, which was invest in real estate and that'll lower your taxes. I took that to heart. And what I realized was over a number of years, and a lot of hundreds, thousands of dollars of passive losses just sitting there, recognizing, and it's not for the sake of them sitting there, but it's if I could have released that capital and been able to use that, like imagine you're able to use another $50,000 or $100,000 of capital over 5 years.
You're listening to the AZREIA Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from AZREIA, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, AZREIA family, friends, and Arizona members. Hey, we're here today and we have a very special guest. We have Billy Keels. And if you haven't heard of Billy, he is an out of country investor. So we're going to go past out of state and we're going to go out of country. He hails from Barcelona, Spain, and he's doing some amazing things as it pertains to real estate. So we're going to get into his backstory of how he started with real estate. But before we do that, always, how we doing? Our executive director, Mike Prete. How you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me on my podcast. Hey, thanks for being here, Billy. Appreciate it, man. We go back, so.
Yeah, we do, Mike, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share a little bit of the story. And Marcus, I appreciate the warm welcome and looking forward to a positive conversation, and then like to be able to make a little bit of impact and also maybe give someone one or two nuggets that they can take away today and actually put into action to get closer to their goals much faster.
Okay, great. So what we want to do on this show today, we want to condense a lot of information and content in a short period of time. But before we do that, I want to give the quick backstory of how you and Mike met and everything like that. Because again, you're in Spain, Mike's here in Arizona. How did that actually come to play?
Tell the story, or does Mike? Mike,
well,
Mike, why don't you tell the story?
Whoever's most creative.
well, this snowball. No, it's about community. It's about learning, right? So there's a gentleman, Jay Massey, that was teaching how to raise money and invest in apartments and multifamily. And he was doing it out of state as well, so that was appealing. And he had a community on Facebook, right? I think that's where it was. And Billy was a part of it. I was a part of it. And it was a cool community. We had a good time, man. It was very close with a lot of great conversations, a lot of help within each other. And we kind of just snowballed from there. Right, Billy? Anything you want to add?
I mean, no, that's exactly it. And being able to practice the skills that were being learned. And then as you practice skills and you're doing that offline, you start to build a rapport with people. You start recognizing, okay, wow, Mike's got amazing strengths in this area. And then it also happened that Mike and I had a chance to meet up with one another here in Europe while he was on a family vacation many years ago. And so then that just helps to crystallize. And then he was very, very gracious, and he decided to join me on my podcast, the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, on episode 139, which was epic, by the way. So everybody needs to check him out there. It was absolutely amazing. I was able to twist his arm and get him to come over and join me, which was pretty awesome. So yeah, we go back a number of years.
Yeah, man. Real quick, Marcus, I do want to chime in when we met, because he's in Barcelona. I was visiting Mallorca. And so you were actually flying back and forth for part of your job where you worked. Yep. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we were like, hey, let's meet up at the airport. So drove down to the airport and we got to know each other, whatever. So but what I would like to thank Billy for is you kind of made me realize something, right? It was pretty cool because we're sitting there, you're flying around Europe. You had this fancy suit on, looking sharp. And I was like, and you said something, man. You were like, hey, I'm just trying to be like you, do what you're doing. I'm just like scratching my head. I'm like, you're super uber successful, man. Like little old me, right? Like, and you want to just do what I do. So it made me really realize like how, great real estate is, and how what a great tool it is, and how it could change your life and how it inspires others. And, I welcome you onto our side of the entrepreneurship. You were always an entrepreneur anyways, doing it with your business, but you made the leap, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely did. And it is interesting what can happen when you have perspective, right? What is the context of a given situation given you? And I just remember being there at the airport, and it was like June or July, and it was super hot, and I'm in this suit, and I was just going, man, Mike is chilling. He's here at the, he's got his t-shirt on, he's hanging out, and I was like, this is the life, man. This is the life.
That's good. Yeah. It's so cool. Yeah. See, I'm looking at you like, man, this guy's flying all around Europe. It's cool, man. That's good stuff. So tell us your story, man. So
yeah, I was going to say, if you guys don't mind, I've been watching, Mike, and since we go back way back, and I watch what you all are doing, and I love the way that you are continuing to share your experience and your expertise. And I would just like to ask if it's okay for those of you who've been watching or been listening, and you've not had a chance yet, you've not created time to leave an honest written review and rating for the guys. It's something that will really help to benefit you, because it allows them to attract the guests that are going to give you exactly what you need. So if you haven't done that, just take a couple seconds. I know it's something that goes a long way, and I know you're really, really busy, but leave them an honest written review as well as a rating. It goes a long way. So So with that as a background, I think the biggest thing is, although I live in Barcelona, originally from Columbus, Ohio, and by the time I was 12, we'd probably lived in, my parents are both blue collar, they worked 2 jobs. I watched them struggle with money. Money was never a really positive topic in my household, because when you don't have it, you don't like talking about it. And when you don't talk about it, you don't learn about it. And when you don't learn about it, it's just like this very terrible thing. And so parents put a real focus on education. So of course I studied hard. I watched them work hard. So I studied hard. I got 2 degrees in college. I got rejected from my dream job, not once, but twice. And so that was really, really difficult for me at the end of college, but I walked away with 2 degrees. Rejection was something I didn't do very well with, but the second time I got rejected from the job, it changed the course of my life. And I ended up working a role where I worked and traveled throughout some 58 countries and did that in 5 years. So by the time I was 26, I'd seen so many different things, but it was always based on being able to go out, get a job, and move up the corporate ladder. So I did that, but I didn't really want to go back to a normal 9-to-5 job after that. I was supposed to go to Europe for 1 year sabbatical back in 2001. And let's just say, guys, I continued to work in the corporate world up until December of last year. With 26 years is the time that I served in the corporate life. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I probably made way more money than I should have working in enterprise software sales. And that was fantastic. But that 1 year sabbatical, aside from continuing my corporate life, it ended up being 3 different countries. So between France and Paris, and then down in a town called Montpellier. I lived in Italy for a while, and then I've been here in Barcelona, Spain for the last almost 16 years, got married, 2 kids. And so I've also learned additional 4 languages. So that 1 year sabbatical completely changed my life. And
wow.
In the last decade, I was also investing in real estate. So I know there are a number of different things we could probably talk about, guys, and really ready to take the conversation wherever it's going to help the most.
So Billy, you were heavily invested in the corporate world, corporate structure. Why did you decide to look into real estate? Why was that something that piqued your interest?
Marcus, it's a great question, and it's one up until recently I was super ashamed of even talking about. But it goes back to what I was talking about before, like being in a family where money was not something you talked about, because when you don't have it, it sucks. It's pretty bad, right? And so I wanted to always be a very present father. At the same time, in the back of my mind, the thing that I wanted to really do more than anything else was provide financial security to my family. And so as I liked my job and I got caught up in that whole promotion, and I was going to the Top Achievers Award, I was flying to Hawaii every other year, I was in the top talent program. And so I thought that was the way that I could show the most love to my family. But on my son's 3rd birthday, the night before his 3rd birthday, I didn't sleep very well, Marcus. I slept pretty terribly because I knew the next morning I had to get up, and I was on a flight to Frankfurt, Germany. Now, what I can tell you, Marcus and Mike, I don't remember the meeting that I was at all day, but I do remember waking my wife and our 1-year-old up very early in the morning, probably before 5:30, 5:45, something like that, to wake them up, wake our 3-year-old up after I got out of the shower. I gave him a hug and a kiss, and I was out the door. And so that night, while my family was together, my in-laws, I was at a business meeting at a dinner, and that is the moment that made me realize, like, I don't ever want to feel the way that I feel right now. And I do not, even though I like my job, I was doing something that was not congruent with the man that I wanted to be, with the father that I wanted to be. And so it hurt me. And it hurt me to the point that I couldn't just be like the theoretical, guru anymore. I had to take the stuff that I was learning, the rent minus the operating expenses, the net operating income minus the debt service, and start putting it into action. And so it was at that moment that I realized that I needed to do that. And I actually sat down and I wrote my 5-year goal out when I came back, because this was going from theory to action. And it took me about 3 years. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad to the time that happened with my son. And from that moment on, it took me 18 months to achieve a 5-year goal based on number of units and income. But coming back to answer your question, it took a really painful, shameful event for me, missing my son's 3rd birthday, which is I said that's what I was doing all this stuff for. And I wasn't doing it for that, or I got lost along the way. So that's really what got me started to truly invest in real estate.
And that happens because a lot of people, they become so achievement oriented to where they forget what's the purpose of what I'm trying to achieve. And for you, it was, I wanted to be a present father with my 1 and my 3-year-old. And then you took a step back and you noticed, well, you know what I'm trying to achieve and trying to accomplish, I'm really not doing it. Although monetarily and financially, I'm setting my family up, but me being there is really a mishap for my family.
Yep, that's it.
So you said you sat down and you did a 5-year goal. Do you remember what was those goals? What was that thing that you was trying to achieve?
It's here with me, like literally in this office. And I sat down, and that goal was to be able to generate 4 figures of net income, and to be able to do that in 5 years, and be able to create 10 doors. That was the goal that I set out for myself. It's literally like here written. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's literally written here. And I keep it with me because it's a reminder of the difference between what happens when you tell yourself you're going to do something and you start to take action. And I know, Mike, you're a huge believer in this. And it actually baffled me that doing this from Barcelona, Spain, investing 100% of all assets that my companies own are in the United States, and being able to do that in 18 months versus the 60 months that I thought it was going to take me when I was when I didn't have that like thing that really set the fire under me to get out there and start taking action.
So 2 things there that I hear a lot is, one, I want to go into, hey, you invested across the world here when there's people are afraid to invest in their own backyard. Yeah. And another thing you did was, you set that goal. I want 10 houses, 10 doors. And how long was 5 years?
5 years. Yep.
Right. I hear that a lot. There's nothing wrong with like, when you're new and you just don't know what you don't know, you might say, hey, I want 10 houses in 10 years, or I want 5 houses for the rest of my life. When it's more achievable, it's easier. It could be easier than that. So how'd you overcome investing overseas, and how'd you, like, what was the difference that you went from 5 years to 18 months? Like, what were those clicks, that confidence?
So the first thing that happened, because I was somebody who in the beginning, like, I like a lot of control. So and all of the things that the theory that I was seeing, like, reading the books, and the theory said, like I said, mentioned before, the formulas, I knew them like the back of my hand. What I was missing was the practical application of the theory. And so when I started to apply what I was learning to the location that I was living in, i.e. Barcelona, I didn't have the education and I didn't have the network to understand that where I lived was not the location that was going to give me the highest probability of achieving the goal. What do I mean by that? I mean that I was looking for cash flow, and I live in a market, once again, with no education and no network, that is really not the type of location that's going to give you cash flow. It's more of an appreciation based type of location. And so every time I kept looking for that plus 200 or that plus 50 or that plus 300, every single time it kept coming back like negative 50 euros, negative 125 euros or dollars or whatever the case may be. And I was like, hang on a second, this doesn't make any sense. And so fortunately, as a US citizen residing abroad, I had friends of mine that were Spanish who were like, dude, you're from the US. Why don't you just buy in the US? And I was like, are you kidding me? How am I going to buy in the U.S.? Do you not see the Atlantic Ocean between
Right.
here and the closest possible? I thought it was just like the most absurd thing. But
Yeah.
then into the second part of your question is, there were two things that I knew that I wanted that I wanted to happen. Number one, I did not want to feel the pain of having my entire in-laws and my wife and kids singing happy birthday to anybody without me being there. So that pain was really moving me to take action. And then also, I had money in the bank that I was tired of it just sitting in the bank. I wish I could tell you guys I had some master plan and I had everything perfectly figured out, but I knew that I was now going to invest in the United States. I had money in the bank. And so the next logical step was to ask the way that I decided on the location was, when things go wrong, can I pick up the phone and call a family member? And because that's the only way that I selected the location where I invested my money, when things started going wrong, i.e. I bought the property, but I didn't have a team in place. I didn't understand anything about the location, but I did know what I wanted to get out of it. I wasn't necessarily sure why because I didn't want to feel the way that I did before. That's where I went. Fortunately for me, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, I didn't overthink it so much. And I had that emotional drive that I didn't want to feel. And I just said, all right, well, where's family live? And I've got enough money. And I had to get introduced to a banker that talked to me about the different type of loan products that were available. Mm-hmm. And I learned about that. And then eventually I invested long distance. And that's kind of how it got started. So not much more complicated than that. I've come a long way since then. I definitely am more aligned with the way that you guys are teaching, but that's what I needed as a beginner to get started.
Well, and what you said there, Billy, is some of the things that really stop people from going to making that switch from theory into practice is because they want to sit down and they theorize everything and they say, okay, well, this is my master plan. I need X to work out. Then I need to go to Y. Then Z happen. And then, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And a lot of times in life, that theory and practice is completely different. And if that theory doesn't line up with that practice, then people say, okay, well, it doesn't work. I give up. So it was a good thing that you said, you know what? I'm just going to jump out here and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try and align myself with the right people and take the right action and see what those results are. And the results came out positive. You got those 10 doors in 18 months.
Yeah. And it was overall positive, but I made a lot of mistakes. I had a roofing problem that cost me about $25,000. And that was because I got the home inspection, but guess what? I had gotten so comfortable with the first two purchases, I invested in the home inspection, but I didn't read it. And so 6 to 8 months later, right? And Mike's laughing because you hear this all the time, right? Because I did that. And then what it cost me between getting the roof fixed, having to pay for the residents when they were living in another place, that was a simple thing that I should have picked up on because I was so busy working my job. I already had the home inspection. I didn't think about, because I thought, well, if there's something major, they'll tell me. And then when I went back 6 to 8 months later, or maybe it was a year later, I can't remember exactly right now, but I went back and I looked in the home inspection because I was upset thinking, man, they didn't even put this in the home inspection. And yeah, it was pretty clearly there that was going to be an issue. And so it made me realize had I taken the time to read it, because I took the time to invest and have somebody go out there, it would have allowed me to then go renegotiate, provide the right infrastructure up front and an overall better service for the tenants. And I wouldn't have had to pay for that. Well, it's a pretty, that was a pretty interesting learning opportunity for me. Yeah. And, it's one that I share with other people so that you hopefully, if you're going to take the time to invest in a home inspection, read it.
Yeah. And I partially laughed because, now looking back, it's even today we get, we're wrapped up in our business, right? We got so much going on. We're confident. We've been doing this forever. Even there's things sometimes I'm like, wow, if I just took a minute or had someone do it or asked for some help and delegated it, whatever it was, you could save money. But yeah, I can just relate.
Yeah.
Wow. And what would have happened if you didn't have the money? Right? Think about that. This is important.
That would have been
a huge.
I
mean, another house.
It would have been a really, really not a nice situation. Fortunately, financially, things were working out in all of the properties all of the doors. And so we were able to absorb some of that. But it ended up being, I had to loan my company money and get it fixed. So.
So,
Yeah.
so Billy, for those people that are in that theory practice stage, they say, you know what, I'm transitioning from theory and I'm actually going to get out here and do this. What was that first step that you had to take when you're across seas and you say, you know what, I'm going to invest in this property right here? What was it that you had to do to get from that theory into practice? So was it calling a banker, starting to get financing worked out? What was that first step?
Yeah. So the first step was just the fear of not wanting to miss another important event. Like that was the thing that drove me to do everything. When I realized that I didn't like that, just as an overall thing. And the thing, Marcus, that I really want to reiterate to people, I'm sharing that with you because I hope you don't wait until something like that emotionally happens to you. If you hear it from somebody else, which is why I was pretty ashamed to talk about it before, but I realized that when I do share it, hopefully there's somebody that's listening that's saying,
yeah.
you know what, I'm going through the exact same thing. Don't miss something that you could probably easily avoid missing if you just start taking action. Recognize that the action is going to be based on imperfect information. And though people that you surround yourself with, and today you're investing your time with Mike, with Marcus, and they're going to be able to point you in the right direction, take action. Don't wait until it's too late. So that kind of going on in the background. But then I didn't know, like I knew that I had money, Marcus, but I didn't know really much about like what I would need to do to get a loan. And so the very first call was to family members to say, hey, listen, does anybody know a banker? Because I knew that was going to be the most important thing. How do I get a loan? I didn't know the difference between variable rate mortgages, I did fixed rate, because I never even bought a home. Like I had no idea. I was just jumping right into investment property. So everything started with the banker. And then meeting the banker and understanding about the different loan products, recognizing that it was going to be very traditional, very retail, 25% down, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have anybody in the location because what I didn't want to do is burden my family with managing this on a day-to-day basis. So I got the introduction from the banker to a general contractor. The general contractor knew the area, was also an investor, ended up introducing me to someone who was a broker, the real estate broker, who then introduced me to the real estate agent. And so then we started working that way. And then when I bought the property, I recognized I didn't actually have anybody to manage the property on a day-to-day basis. So I learned to build systems based on things that were broken, because when a tenant who's in your property has to call a number that's based in Spain to fix a problem, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so it was then realizing, okay, well, I've got this problem. How do I fix it? Then I found out there were 24 hours, 7 day a week answering services we could call. Then they would call somebody else. And, like I said, I took action. It was imperfect action, and then imperfect action or action based on imperfect information, but at least I got started. And I knew, and this is one of the things I think it's really important, especially if you're someone who is like me, you're just getting started, you're excelling in your job, you really know that you want to do something new and you don't have enough experience. You're already a step ahead of me because you're here with Mike and Marcus, but it's just to make sure that you're not going to probably get it right the first time, but you've shown enough success that when you see that things are wrong, you're going to course correct, or you're already part of AZREIA that's going to help you, and you have accountability partners, people that can point you in the right direction. So don't be afraid to fail. Mike, I know you talk about it. Fail fast, fail forward, fail frequently, but just do it so that you can actually get to the outcome that you're ultimately looking for.
And what you drove home right there, Billy, was what I wanted people to understand and to get is, take that one action and everything else will start to line up. You'll start to see, okay, well, I need to fix this. Well, where can I go to get this? All right, here's the contractor. The contractor lead me to a property manager. So it's all about taking that one action. What people want to do is they want to say, okay, how do I get from Arizona to California? First thing is grab your car keys. Next, go to the car, start the engine. But we want to look at, all right, we're here. We want to get quickly to that end process. And sometimes you got to take those small steps that'll lead you along that journey.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Awesome. And so was this all happening in Columbus? I'm just going with the assumption.
No, this is all in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah, so it was actually purchasing in New Jersey. No disrespect to New Jersey. It was great where I got started. Would definitely not purchase there today if that was the choice that I was making, just because, like I said, I didn't have the education and I didn't have the support network. So when I look at things now, I look at it from a very structured, based on criteria. So there's a statistical analysis that happens. And of course you've got to get some intuition that goes a part of that. But in the beginning, it was just intuition. I just didn't want to feel that pain of missing another event. And that's what kicked me into action. And because family had left Ohio and was closer to New Jersey, that's how it ended up buying in New Jersey.
Okay.
No, I love that. And from where we learn from, we drive home here a lot is your investor identity, right? Figuring out who you are and what's landlord friendly, tenant friendly, and like understanding all these items to create who you are. Then it would be much easier to articulate what you want, and those deals will, come. So awesome. So where'd you end up going?
I had the 10 doors in New Jersey, and then I realized that I needed to get some more structure in my life. And so that's when I decided to invest in paid mentorship. I got that. I ended up getting a process and put things together. And so through that, I learned what it was like to then go out and start at like a state level, go from state level to city level, and then from a city level to submarket level, or an MSA, then to submarket, and then down into the down almost to the block. And so I ended up going through a process, and I looked at 4 different states, and it came down to 6 different cities. And I ended up purchasing in the Charlotte MSA, in the Charlotte MSA, I ended up purchasing a mobile home park. And that mobile home park was it was a great kind of going through, understanding, recognizing, using a lot of the sales skills, because I worked in sales and sales leadership for 26 years in the corporate life. And I was able to make that purchase. It fit into what I wanted to do. The team was already in place, built. So it was a very different experience than when I first got started in New Jersey. And then after that, I found out I was something called an accredited investor. And so when I realized that I was an accredited investor, and I know you guys have talked about that some, or to some extent, but being an accredited investor allowed me to then invest my financial capital with other people who were bringing people together that had similar goals, financial goals, similar aspirations. And then I started combining being an active investor, doing that long distance, and then also passively investing my financial resources with other people. And I started looking at that across a number of different classes, everything from large multifamily. I also invested with other people in development projects for like Hilton branded hotels, Marriott branded hotels. I got into ATM machines, passive investor, and then most recently into large pieces of energy equipment. So I've started to do a number of things and really combine different vehicles, real estate being the foundation for everything else, but it also helped to open my eyes to other investment opportunities.
Wow. So do you own the properties in New Jersey still?
In a couple of days, probably not.
Okay.
So no, I am in the process of cycling out. We've cycled out of about 80% of those, in the last 2, hopefully by the time this goes live, will also be out of the portfolio.
Got it. So are you doing like a 1031 or just cashing out? What are you?
Cashing out. Yeah. Cashing
cool.
out.
Awesome, man.
And the reason for that, part of it is and this is just a kind of an obsession that's happened recently, just because I've started learning a lot more about tax and stuff like that. But I had these, after 7, 8 years, I had these things called passive losses that were still sitting on the books. And so rather than doing a 1031 exchange, I actually have a destination for the capital. And so I'm using the passive losses that have built up for the last number of years to be able to keep as much of the capital as possible. There's some recapture and stuff like that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but decided to do that.
Let us know what passive losses are.
Yeah. So passive losses is really, so when you're investing, I guess also to Mike, and now I'll say this, I am not a CPA. I am not a tax professional. So what I'm talking about is just my own experience. And so you definitely need to speak with your tax professional about your specific situation. But I will tell you what my understanding is of passive losses, because I invested a lot of money with my CPA for him to explain it to me. So one of the things that happened when I was a high wage earner, as I was investing in rental property is one of the types of assets that creates what the IRS deems as passive income. So there's basically different types of income. There's passive income, there's non-passive, like ordinary, which is when you're working in your job, your W-2. That's a different type of income. So when I was investing in rental properties, every year there's depreciation on the properties. And so it appears that the rental properties are not actually making money, that they're in fact losing money if you do it properly. And so, but what happened was this money, I didn't actually get those passive losses back because I thought I would be able to write those off against my W-2 income.
Right.
But I found that there's different buckets. So there's a bucket of passive income, and then there's ordinary income or non-passive income. And these two buckets don't mix unless you have a very specific IRS designation, which we don't need to go too much into that. I mean, we can if you want, but it's just what that helped me to do as an investor is it helped me to recognize that there are different ways to generate income. And based on the way that you generate your income can also affect one of the outcomes like Marcus was talking about earlier, and how quickly you can get to your destination, whatever that investing destination is.
Yeah, like the tax bucket overall is a whole nother strategy outside of just let's rent or flip or whatever it is. So, and I'm still trying to figure that game out as well. Every day there's something new. So what kind of advice, because you said you spent a lot of money on this, and someone in the beginning stages, where do they even start? Who do they even talk to? Like, just to kind of learn, how do they find the right CPA, like books to read? Just what do you got?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. So I've read, actually I even posted this the other day on my LinkedIn, but one of the people that I had a chance to meet, he was speaking at a conference, was Tom Wheelwright. And I remember him talking about active income and passive income. And I was like, wow, this is absolutely unbelievable. And that's investing in a book, right? You buy a book, it's tax-free wealth. I think most people have seen it or heard of it. And it's one that I've personally read. But you know what? One of the things that I would say would be probably pretty useful for your audience is, since you're already here, if this is something that's really interesting, I'm sure that, and I'm not throwing this over to you, Mike and Marcus, but I'm sure if that was a topic that was really important, that I'm sure that there's a CPA there locally that would be really willing to come in and talk to you all about it very high level. Like, hey, listen, what are some of the different things that you want to consider when you're making your investments? Because I think that's one of the best ways to know, if you can know ahead of time. I was not aware of it because, once again, I don't come from a family with money. It's not a type of conversation that we were having at the dinner table. And I took a lot of the sound bites, which was invest in real estate and that'll lower your taxes. I took that to heart. And what I realized was, over a number of years and, a lot of hundreds of thousands of dollars of passive losses just sitting there, recognizing, and it's not for the sake of them sitting there, but it's, if I could have released that capital and been able to use that, like imagine you're able to use another $50,000 or $100,000 of capital over 5 years. You can invest that in either buying maybe another duplex or investing it with somebody else. So it was more the opportunity cost of what I was missing, not the fact that eventually I knew that I would be able to use those passive losses. I just wouldn't have to wait 8 years like I'm doing now.
And I think, like, so with taxes, right? So when you're in that stage of, hey, I need to change my life with real estate, right? I'm at these business meetings. It's hard to say, let me look into taxes, right? Like I think for like when we have new people around the Rio, for example, it's like, how do you get them excited to go to a tax event, right? Like, even though it's so important. Like, how do we, I just want to be like, tell people now, like, because it could be confusing and overwhelming, and it's not fun.
Well, no, it's not necessarily fun, but it's highly impactful, right?
Very,
so
yes.
I guess the thing that I would maybe just suggest is, if you're just getting started, take the tax conversation away. Like, if you're looking to buy your very first single family residence or your first quadplex or duplex, that doesn't matter yet. It's going to matter later, but you've got to get in the game. If you're thinking about taxes rather than actually making your first investment, like you're Marcus, is what you said earlier. Like, you're thinking about step 5 when you should be thinking about step 1. So get started first. Like, don't wait until, like I did. I was, a couple of 10 units in, and then I was like, well, hang on a second. Actually, 10 units in plus 10 units in plus the mobile home park. I was 10 units in plus the mobile home park, and I was like,
I feel you.
I didn't even recognize it. And I'm like, what are these? What is this all about? And then I was frustrated, and because I didn't have the education, I didn't know what to do. And so, like, I called my CPA. I was like, I thought this was supposed to be bringing my taxes down. He's like, no, not really. So I would suggest, more than anything else, is get started first. Read a book. We talked about the books. You can even Google stuff, watch videos on YouTube. They talk about them a lot. And then, when it makes sense, talk to Mike, talk to Marcus about seeing if you can get somebody to come in and do a 30-minute pitch on what's the difference between passive and non-passive income.
Love it.
Perfect. Well, Billy, we have so much more we could have got into, and more than likely, we're going to invite you back onto the show because this is just the tip of the iceberg, sir. But we want to respect your time and honor your time. So, but before you go, man, how can we get in touch with you? How can we find you? How can we follow you? Just to continue to follow your journey.
Yeah, sure, man. And Marcus, I appreciate it. And Mike, like I said, I really do appreciate this opportunity to be here and share a little bit of my stories. It's great to be able to see, man, and the things that you're doing and the lives you're impacting. I think the best way, I said, go check out Conversation 139 on the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels. It's a great way just to hear more about, long distance investing. One of the things, and hopefully some of that came through, I'm really, really passionate right now about this whole topic around tax, because when you understand more of it, it can also help to get you to your destination much faster. We've even taken time to write up I guess you call it like a
white paper,
case study, a white paper. Yeah, thank you very much, Marcus. You could see like me go blank. Yeah, and what you need to do is just go to firstgencp.com/pay less tax. And that will talk to you a little bit about, it's really geared towards accredited investors. But once again, it's firstgencp.com/pay less tax. And I love connecting with people on LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty sure that I'm the only Billy Keels in Barcelona, Spain. And if you let me know that you heard us having this conversation here today, it just gives us a way to continue to keep the conversation going. And over there, I usually post things that I'm thinking about or things that are happening. So I think those are the best ways to get in touch and follow.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Yeah, Mike, really appreciate it. Marcus, thank you so very much. And hopefully this has been valuable to someone, and definitely don't wait to feel emotional pain before you start taking action.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Billy. So you all that are listening, you all know exactly what to do. You got the instructions, get out there, take massive action. This is one of the things that we talked about that Billy shared with us. Don't wait until you have that emotional pain before you get out there and take action. You can always go to AZREIA.org. If you want additional information about real estate investing, go to AZREIA.org, or you can come directly down to the office. We're at 16th Street in Highland, 16th Street in Highland. But go to the website, you'll see the address there. Billy, Mike, thank you guys once again. And you guys know what to do. Get out there and take action.
Are your real estate dreams on hold? With work, kids, everything else going on, time is limited. Most days you feel like the world's on your shoulders. You might even say to yourself, if I just had someone to lean on and push me in the right direction, I know things would happen quicker. Well, then you need to check out the Deal Finders Club, a community of investors eager to close more deals, sign more contracts, and just get ahead in life. The DFC provides weekly coaching, thriving online community, and all the education you need to be confident. DFC is your fastest path to closing more deals. To learn more, head over to AZDFC.com. That's AZDFC.com.
Thanks for listening to the AZREIA Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Prete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to AZREIA.org and learn more about our community.